Good afternoon and welcome on this session on Windows 8. This is an introductory session, but a bit more on a technical level than what most of you, I guess, have seen this morning. But I think I'd better start out by introducing myself. My name is Kevin. I'm a technical consultant at RealDolmen, which is one of the bigger ICT companies in Belgium. I've been working with web applications, XAML applications for the past 9 years, I think. Even a bit of Java, long ago. So I've been more or less headfirst in .NET since the beginning. Started with ASP.NET, VB.NET, C# after that, and after which I went to Silverlight application building. And after that, I guess, going to Windows 8 store apps with the XAML knowledge I already had was a bit of a logical step. So that's actually what I do during the day, XAML, day in, day out. And I wrote a few books on that as well, on Silverlight, Silverlight 4 and Silverlight 5. I think the best way to contact me would probably be my Twitter. But if you wish, you can also mail me with any questions you might have. So that's my day job. After that, I also have a little company that builds apps, from which this one is probably the best known. It's actually a bit of a Facebook app for Windows 8. So this is the commercial break. Now, I also need to know a few things about you guys. Who's been building Windows 8 apps already? Well, 1, 2. Okay. Have you all followed the session this morning? Most of you, apparently. Okay, that's good because there's actually quite a lot of content in this session. So I don't really have to focus too much on the design traits of Windows 8 apps, but I can go right into code. But don't worry, I will go over it quickly for those who weren't there this morning. So what are we going to talk about? I'm going to start with a small introduction of what makes for a good Windows 8 application, for which we'll use a demo app, which I will use throughout this session and throughout the session which follows this one. After that, we're going to go straight into how you can lay out your data in the Windows 8 app and how you can group it. And we'll see how easy it actually is to group your data because quite a few of the built-in controls automatically support this. That's quite easy. And we'll go straight into semantic zooming, which is what you get when you zoom out by pinching your tablet screen. And afterwards, we'll talk a bit about snapping our application. As you might know, there's quite a few view modes, let's say, for Windows 8 app. You've got the normal landscape mode, portrait mode, and an obligatory mode, snapping, which happens when the user snaps the app to the left side or the right side of the screen. So you actually have to build those views, and we'll go a bit deeper into that. We'll also talk a bit about navigation patterns. There's hierarchical navigation, so typically maximum 3 levels deep. And there's flat navigation to immediately jump typically from one module of your app to the other module. So I'm going to show you how you can navigate from one page to another and what you can pass in as parameters. We'll also look at adding a command bar. You'll see that's very easy, so we'll be fast through that one. And then we're going to go to one of the most interesting parts of Windows 8 apps, well, in my head at least. As you might know, Windows 8 apps work together. They work together from the system itself, and they work together by leveraging functionality another app has. And that's done through contracts. So you've got search contracts, which makes your app searchable from anywhere in Windows. And you've got share contracts, which allow you to share your data through other apps. And you'll see that like that, it's actually quite easy to get functionality in your app without even having to write it. And then, of course, we'll have to talk a bit about live tiles. And after that, we're going to wrap it up. But as you might know, this is obviously not everything there is to say about Windows 8 apps. These are a few of the important parts. But I will go into what other stuff you might want to look at. And I'll have a list of resources, and I hope I'll be able to leave some time for Q&A. Anyway, let's get started. by giving you a quick demo of the app we're going to use. Let's see. Like this. There we go. I'm just going to start it. There's actually a Woodgrove banking application. It's going to start. Does anyone know the Woodgrove application? It was actually the same database as was used as a Silverlight demo years and years ago. Anyway, as you can see here, we immediately got the horizontal panning and content before Chrome you've all heard about this morning. So no on-screen commands, nothing to distract the user from the content of the app. From this, you also immediately see the grouping. So we actually have categories, credit card category with some credit cards in it, housing loan category with some housing loan products from the bank. We can navigate, this is hierarchical navigation, from the hub page, which is where we were, through this page, kind of a section page, sorry, right through to the detail page. From this page, you can share to another application, and of course the application is searchable as well. Well, let's search for credit, and you get this. And here's the flat navigation using a command bar, a navigation bar, and of course the application snaps. So I think that's more or less everything I'm going to show you how to implement now. So let's start by laying out data and grouping it. When you start building an app like this, you'll obviously immediately notice that there are a bunch of controls built in. The most important ones, the ones you will probably use most, at least, are list view, grid view, and a flip view. These are typically used for laying out collections of data. Now, some of you might wonder, what's that list view when we used to have a list box, if you're used to WPF or Silverlight? Well, actually, I'd advise you to use the list view. List box is still in there as well. But list view is more optimized for touch. There's more events, tapped events. It has bigger margins, so it's better to use that when you're building an interface for a touch device. List view typically lays out your items vertically, while a grid view is used to lay out your items horizontally. So what we've seen on the page I've just shown you in regular mode, that was a grid view. There's a few neat tricks you can do with that grid view, like variable size of the blocks. I will show you that in the next session. And last one is the flip view, which is also a control that accepts a list of items or an observable collection of items, but that's used to flip through one by one. These are the main items for laying out your data in a Windows Store app, and you'll run across them quite often. And now we're going to see how you can actually group this data using a grid view. So let's see. So for those of you who haven't been working with Windows 8, have you been working with anything XAML? Yeah, okay, good. So this will probably look a bit familiar then. Quickly gonna tell you how this solution is built. We've actually got notifications extensions project. That's from the Windows 8 SDK. That's just a bunch of helper classes to make it easier to build toasts and badges and live tiles. So just took that one. This is my service layer. That's a very simple WCF service which connects to a local database. Sorry. On SQL Express. By the way, you get all this code afterwards. So there's a lot more in there than I can explain now. It's catalog service. Let's make this a bit bigger. Contains, well, more or less what you could expect. A method to get categories which returns the banking products and children belonging to that banking product category. So if you call this method, you get a catalog category which contains a list of credit cards, for example, if the category is credit. That's important to know because that's how we will do our grouping. There's a few other methods here, but in general, well, I think you can more or less guess what this does. And then, of course, there's the Windows Store application itself. I've added a reference to the catalog service, simple add service reference, just as you're used to. So I can now access that. And then I can go immediately to the products group page, which is the first page you see when starting the app. I'm gonna go away from the design view. Right. So, if I'm going to talk about grouping data, I will have to show you a few things. So first of all, I will have to show you how I get the data from the service. After that, I will have to show you how to enable the grouping on the grid view. And of course, I'll have to show you the grid view itself. So I think I'd better start with showing you how to get the data. This is regular MVVM, which is probably familiar to most of you if you've been building XAML apps. So let's just go to the method of importance. That's this one. This method creates proxy client, an instance of it, and then I call the get categories async method on that. This is a generated method that goes back to my get categories method on the service layer I've just shown you. Now, a few things that might be a bit weird here. This async and await keyword. Those were actually introduced, if I'm not mistaken, with .NET 4.5. You have to know that almost everything in Windows 8 development is asynchronous. If you've used Silverlight, you know service calls in there are async as well, or if you've used async web services. But the thing is, when you do an async call, what you typically expect would be call the method and attach a handler to the completed event of that method. And once the method returns from the server, you get to the completed event, and then you can continue. Now, all's well with that, but the problem is if you make almost everything async, for example, accessing a file is async in Windows 8, it's gonna get pretty messy pretty fast, because you'll typically have method call, completed handler, and in the completed handler, another method call, and another method call, and you get to a whole new level of spaghetti code like that. What async and await does, it's actually a bit of a compiler trick to make your code look in sync while it actually isn't. You could state that this call this method actually tells the compiler to wait with execution of the rest of the method until the get categories method returns with a result. So that's actually what happens here. So this actually looks like synchronous code, but it isn't. This call is async. It's just that the execution of the rest of the method is halted until your async call returns. But even though it's halted, it doesn't block your threads. So that's the nice part about it. While this is fired somewhere on another thread, the rest of your code execution can complete. But the rest of this method will only complete once your call has been returned. Now that's a very basic explanation of this. You could probably fill a few sessions just talking about async and await, but it's probably best to explain it shortly here. That's the await keyword. The async keyword actually just says that your method can be awaited. That's more or less what that is. So what happens here is I call the get categories method. That's returned, and that should give me a list of catalog category. Let's have a look at that one. Here we go. Generated code by adding the service reference. Catalog category. And this is the important part here. The catalog category class contains a list of catalog products. And that's probably in the catalog product fields. Yeah, here we go. So each catalog category contains a catalog products property, which in turn is an observable collection of catalog products. Right. The rest of this method can be ignored for now. That's for later on. Important to know is that we will now have a grouped and ordered categories observable collection, which we can now use in our view. So this is how we get the data. Now, how do we use that data? Back to the products group page. You can see I've used a collection view source here. If you're familiar with how data binding, etc. work, you might wonder, well, why aren't you just simply binding to the observable collection you've got in your view model? Well, I'm not doing that because I want this grouping support. And the nice thing is that grid view and everything that inherits list view base, so a list view as well, has grouping support out of the box. So what do I need to do to enable grouping? I create a collection view source, and I state that the source collection, which is exactly what I got back from my method call, is grouped. So that's this. And that the children of each catalog category can be found in the catalog products property. So that's all I'm stating here. That's the second part. So now on to the third part, which is the grid view itself. I named this grouped items view source, so I'll have to remember that. A bit down here, you already see a part of what's coming up. And this is the important part here. This is my grid view, my main grid view, so complete list. And the item source of this grid view is, well, my collection view source I've just defined a bit higher up in my XAML. And, well, that's it actually. By doing this, my grid view knows it will have a collection of group data, and it will automatically know that the children are that list of products because I've defined that in the collection view source. So all that's left is defining the templates. And as you might expect, we have a group style template. So the header, simple data template, which shows me the title of one catalog category. And this chevron glyph, that's the nice, what do you call it, glyph? The nice arrow pointing to the right. So that's the header of one item. And the item template, that's next, of course. This will define how my items, my products of a catalog category should look. Bound to title, description, and domain image. And that's what it looks like. So this is all I had to do to get a grouped grid. Right. Okay, so we know about grouping now, and we've seen that it's quite easy to do. There's another nice trick, or another nice thing in Windows Store apps, that's called semantic zooming. So if you've seen my page here, this one, due to the horizontal scrolling, you might say, well, it's a bit annoying for the user. He has to scroll all the way to the right to get to a specific category. Some people might say, well, let's just add all the names of the categories on top here somewhere. That's Chrome, and you'd want to avoid that. So how do you do that? How can you easily allow your user to go to a specific category? That's what semantic zooming is for. That's control scroll or pinch out if you've got a tablet. And then you get this. Semantic zooming, you should see that as a zoomed out view of the same data. So you should never use semantic zoom to change context. By which I mean, if you're on a list of items or a grid view of items that contains banking products, then the zoomed out view shouldn't all of a sudden give you a list of employees. It should be the same banking product, but in this case, by category. Only the category, sorry. And the nice thing is that if I now click investment products, then you'll see that we will automatically go to more or less the investment products part. Credit cards automatically jump back to credit cards. So this is semantic zooming, and I'm going to show you how that's done. Okay. Back to the code. I already gave it away a bit. Let's do it like this. The grid view I've just shown you, that was actually contained in this zoomed in view part of my XAML code. So in a Windows 8 app, you've got a semantic zoom control, let's say, at your availability. And in that, you can define a zoomed out view and a zoomed in view. Just by doing that, so by placing this grid view, the one I've shown you in here, and another one which I'll talk about immediately in the zoomed out view. Just by doing that, you automatically get the behavior where the user can zoom in and zoom out. So that's all there is to it. The thing is, of course, we want to, in this case, we want to bind the grid view in the zoomed out view to our categories. So to the group headers of, or to the groups of the zoomed in view. And we'd also like the automatic jumping. So the automatic jumping to the category you've selected in the zoomed out view when you click it and you zoom in again. To do that, and that's one of the other reasons I've used this collection view source from the previous demo. To do that, you have to ensure that you are using the same data source or the grouped items from the same data source. If you do that, you automatically get the jumping back and forward behavior. If you don't do that, you're responsible for that yourself. So you'll have to write a bit of code to do that. It's possible, but it's a bit more annoying. So let's look at, we've seen the zoomed in view. So let's look at how the zoomed out view is defined. Because something appears to be missing. As you can see, this is a regular grid view, and it has a data template. That's more or less it. And in this data template, you see group image URI, and group.title, so the big image and title underneath it. Where is that group thing coming from? It's not. I don't have a property named group on my items. So we somehow need to find out where that's coming from. And something else is missing here. The grid view doesn't even have an item source. So somehow I need to set this item source. I do this in code just to show what exactly is going on. So let's look at that. I think it's probably here. Yeah. This is the one. By the way, in case you're wondering why I'm sending those set semantic zoom hub messages back and forth, model view, view model design pattern, and semantic zoom aren't really a very good match. So I actually have to do this in code behind. That's just for information. But anyway, this is the code which is of importance here. I state that the item source of the list view base, that is my zoomed out view, that is actually the grid view I've just shown you. Every grid view and list view inherit from list view base. So that item source should be set to the collection groups property. And what is the collection groups property? Well, the collection view source I've defined in my XAML, top there, there's a view property which has a property named collection groups. And that's actually the groups I was talking about, the catalog categories in this case. By doing that, I also get that implicit group property I can now bind. So these two lines of code actually more or less fix everything for me. And that's how you get semantic zooming. Okay, let's see what's next. The snapped and portrait views. Well, we are building apps for a multitude of devices with a multitude of form factors. Some people hold their tablet like this. other like to hold it like this, other like to flip it around. So this means we have to create a bunch of views, a bunch of ways of laying out our data. Typically, you would create a landscape view, a regular view, and a portrait view. There's support for the flipped sides as well, but well, unless you really want your user to have another look at your application when his tablet is upside down, you more or less get that out of the box. You don't have to do anything for that. Next to that one, there's something called a snapped view. As you might know, you can run 2 Windows Store apps at the same time next to each other. So you can snap one app to the side, and we'll have a look at how you can get that. So that's that. Snap views, always 320 pixels wide, no matter what the screen resolution is. So it's quite easy to design, actually. And in a lot of cases, your snap view is just a view in which you replace your grid view by a list view. That's often the case. It is the case in my app, for example. There's a few more guidelines on that, but I will immediately show you how that's done. But important to know is that you're supposed to get your snap view to scroll vertically and not horizontally. The portrait view, well, I haven't implemented one of those. But the thing is, you would typically use same types of controls, but you would get your margins a bit smaller. Or you would make sure that there's more elements there's more rows and less columns on your grid view, for example, which is supported out of the box, by the way. So that's about it about portrait view. And I'll immediately show you, because the snap view is obligatory, but portrait view isn't. And I'll show you how you can define that. Right, let's have a look. Back to our solution. Every application has a package.appx manifest file. In this file, you can define a bunch of application-related properties, declarations, capabilities. Capabilities, for example, just quickly, I can't zoom this in, I'm afraid, but you could state that your application needs internet access. You could state that your application needs access to the location sensors of the device if they are available. You can state that your application needs webcam access. These capabilities have to be stated in advance, and every user will also see that these abilities are required for the app to work if he goes to the store and wants to download the app. So very important here is do not just check everything, only check what's really needed. Checking some of these things will, by the way, make sure you will never get into the Windows Store, like enterprise authentication. That's for side-loading apps. Then there's declarations. We'll go into that when we get to the search. But Windows Store apps can support, you've got certificate support, you can support background tasks, you can support it to be a share, source, target. You have to declare that here. Packaging, it's not that important. That's probably screens that look quite familiar. Then there's the application UI, and that's what I was going for. Here you can state which orientations are supported. If you state none, all are. But if you specifically define them, you can just say, well, landscape is supported, landscape flipped is supported, but I do not support portrait. If you don't check portrait or you state you don't support portrait, then flipping the app will simply do nothing. Your user will, well, quickly enough change his tablet around again, I guess. Okay, that's how you state portrait or not portrait. Now let's look at how you go about snapping. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. I need the code. There we go. Now, one of the questions that quickly come up when talking about this is how do you define or how do you know when your app has been snapped? Or should you write code for that? Should you check some kind of sensor on your device to see, or check the mouse to see whether or not your user has snapped the application and do something? Well, actually, you also get that out of the box. If you look at the base page that's used here, that's a layout-aware page. That's included in Windows Store apps. And this layout-aware page automatically takes care of all that for you. So when if you inherit layout-aware page and your user snaps your application, your view will be notified that the application has been snapped. Okay, notified, but what does that mean? So how do I know it? How do I program for that? Well, as a lot of stuff in XAML, you will run into the Visual State Manager. So there are actually different visual states defined on your view. I'll show. Where is it? Ah, here we go. And if I'm correct, it's almost at the bottom. Sorry for the scrolling, but I just need to quickly get there. Here we go. On your page, different states have been defined. The full screen landscape state. Filled, by the way, is what happens when your application is running next to a snapped application. So it's full screen minus the 320 pixels. Portrait and snapped. So this is the important one for now. Your view will automatically go to the snapped state when your user snaps the app. So in the visual state snapped, you define what has to happen to the elements you've defined on your view when the application has been snapped. In this case, what I do is I change the style of the back button on top left, so it's a bit smaller. I change the style of the page title, so it's a bit smaller. And this is probably the thing that's most obvious. I make the item grid view, the horizontally spanning one, invisible, so I set it to collapsed. And I make the item list view, which I'll immediately show you, visible. So this is the code I write for what happens when my app is snapped. So let's have a look at that one. That's this one. So here you see a list view bound to the exact same collection as my grid view, which initially isn't visible. If you set it to collapse, it actually isn't rendered. So it's not like events are going to be fired or rendering has to be done. It's completely invisible. And, well, as both list view and grid view inherit list view base and both support grouping, the only thing I have to do is, well, lay out the data templates for one item and for the header, which is a lot like what I've done in the grid view. And then I get this. So there's actually no code behind, no C# at all, to get behavior like this. Well, at least not that we have to write ourselves. There is some in the layout-aware page. Okay. Gonna have to go quick, I think. Navigation. There's typically two different ways of navigating a Windows Store app. First one is hierarchical navigation. I think, if I remember correctly, this slide was in the previous session as well. Hierarchical navigation is something a lot of users are used to, because it's actually how a lot of web pages, how people navigate through a lot of web pages. So you typically have one entry page, the hub page, let's say. You click on one item in there, so no commands or anything, just on canvas the items themselves. So you click on the content. You go to a section page, and one level deeper there's the detail page. There's a guideline around this that states that you really should try to avoid going more than 4 levels deep in your app, because pages that are hidden that deep are probably pretty hard to find for your end user. This is how you will see a lot of navigation in Windows Store apps. The other way of navigating is flat navigation, which is done through the navigation bar. So that's often used to go from one big part of the app to another big part of the app. Typically, if you have different modules, for example, you have a management app and you have a reporting module and an employee module. A navigation bar would be a good way to go from the employee module to the reporting module, or the other way around. However, experience teaches that most apps have both. Almost every app will use some kind of hybrid way of navigating. I can't really imagine an app without a navigation bar, because I typically have a home button somewhere in there. And I can't really imagine an app where you can't go one level deeper by tapping an item that's on your screen. So a lot of apps will have hybrid ways of navigating. So how do you implement something like this? Well, the first one, we've already seen that, I think. That's what happens when you tap an item. So like this. That's hierarchical. One level deeper, another level deeper. Well, there won't be a lot of surprises there, I guess. So let's have a look. That method is simple as that. I think it's this one. This is the important one. Every app has one and only one root frame, and you can use that root frame, access that root frame to navigate to other parts of your app. The thing that's different here is that instead of passing the name, different from Silverlight, by the way, instead of passing the name, you actually pass in which type of page you need to navigate to. And you can pass in parameters as well. These parameters can be more or less anything. But in the next session, there's a bit of a gotcha in here. That's for the next one. So you can just use frame.navigate, and you will then go to the products details page, and you will end up in the onNavigated_to method there, where you can access your parameter again and do whatever you want to do on that page with what you got now. It might be important to know, by default, there's actually a new instance created of this product details page, but you can set the caching mode in the header of your XAML for each page. So you can state that it should use navigation cache, which will mean that instances will be reused. That's, by the way, a very good tip if you want to avoid your memory just growing huge. So it's as simple as that. And of course, there's a navigation bar. I do have a bit more to say about that. That's what you get when you right-click or you swipe from the top down. I have one button, home. So let's look at that. That's something you can define in XAML. So onto our products group page. And at the top of it, you can see that page has a page.topAppBar property. Every page has this, and in it should be an element of type appBar. So what I've done was, as I would typically like my application navigation bar to be the same across all screens, I've just created a second control for that, so I can reuse that throughout my app. So each of my views has this on top of the page. I named it navigation bar, so it should be here. And as you can see, the type of element is appBar. And next to that, it simply contains a grid with the home button in there. And this is nothing more than the path defining the nice home image. And of course, once you click that one, again, we use the app.rootFrame here to navigate to the home page in this case. So it's very easy, and the nice thing is you can just load it off to another control and reuse it across your pages. Right. Then there's commanding. We've seen a lot of these already. So you've got the on-canvas commands. So tapping the header, for example. You've got charms. That's the bar on the right of your screen. So where the searching is and the settings is. You've undoubtedly seen that one as well. The one we're going to focus on here is the application bar command. So just as you've had a navigation bar, which is the nav bar on top of your screen, you've also got an application bar on the bottom of your screen, the command bar. And of course, you can also have a context menu for extra commands. Now, important to know is, and that's a bit of a design guidelines, you should try and hide away a lot of the commands in your app bar. I'd say that really essential commands for your app can be on canvas, but most of the commands should go in the app bar because, again, those commands are Chrome. There's a lot of Chrome that distract the user from content. The nice thing is you can make your app bar context sensitive. So you could, for example, say, imagine a big list of employees, again, textbook example, I guess. Imagine a big list of employees, and you want to be able to delete those, or you want to be able to select those. Well, in a lot of apps, we see little X's on each item. If you want to do that in a Windows Store app, I'd advise you not to. But instead, just ensure that the app bar shows up once the user selects one or more of those items, of those employees, just by tapping them or swiping across them. The app bar shows up and shows context-sensitive commands. In this case, if one or more items have been selected, it will show a delete button on the left. So that's a way to get rid of all those commands on your screen. Just load them off to the app bar. Of course, there's non-context sensitive commands like a refresh button, for example. Let's see how you implement something like that. Well, a simple app bar. Let's see. It's quite a lot like what I've shown you with the navigation bar. And I think that there's an app bar on the details page. Yeah, here we go. An app bar with one command, pin, which is used to pin this one to the start screen. You can check that out later if you wish. Code is in there. I'll just show you how you can get an app bar like that. And it will probably be not much of a surprise when I say that next to the page.top app bar, there's also a property called page.bottom app bar. And everything that's in here automatically shows up when the user swipes from the bottom or right clicks. So the only thing that's in here is another app bar. I do not load this off to another control because typically my app bar is different depending on the screen I'm on. So I just put that in here. And it contains one button, the pin to app bar button, which goes to the pin to app bar command. So it's not that special, but again, pretty easy to get done. Okay. Now a few things about contracts. This is one of the best things you can do for your Windows 8 app. That's make sure it can work together with the system or with other applications that are installed on the user's computer. All of that is done through contracts. And I'm going to highlight two of them. The search contract and the share contract. So let's start with the search contract. A lot of apps can be searched these days. Again, back to the employee textbook example, you want to search for an employee. The thing is, you no longer have to create the search interface yourself. You can just leverage what Windows already offers you. The search command in the charms bar here. Here. That can be used from anywhere in Windows. And you can just start typing here. Credit in this case. I'm automatically searching in apps here. as you can see down here on the right, there's a list of applications. I've got quite a few applications apparently. There's a list of apps that support search. So all these apps have set to the Windows system, hello Windows, when a user wants to search, he can use my app for that. As you can see, our Woodgrove banking application supports search as well. So, first I'm going to show you one other thing. Even when you're in an app, you can start search. So the search is, how should I say it? Search is by default scoped to the app that is active on screen. So in this case, searching is scoped to my Woodgrove application. So if I start typing now, and I search for credit, I have it here. So I'm searching my Woodgrove application. As I've shown you just a few minutes ago, when I start searching from anywhere in Windows or from any other app, I can, if I wish, select one of the other apps in the list here to say, well, I might be in my Woodgrove banking application, but I would now like to look for something on Facebook, so I'm going to click that one, which would then open my Facebook application and start searching there. That means that there's quite a few things going on here. First, I need to somehow tell Windows that my app is searchable. I need to say, well, I implement a search contract. And then I need to say, and then I need to ensure that my app does something when Windows says, hello, you've been searched. And that's the two things I'll show you now. So first things first, how do I tell Windows that my app is searchable? Well, that's back to the app manifest file. So is it still here? Yeah. That's this one. In the declarations part, you can say what my app supports. And in this case, I've stated that my app is searchable. That's actually all you have to do. You do not have to explicitly set these things. I'll show you how that's done in code. So this is all you have to do. You have to say my app is searchable, end of story. From that moment on, it will appear in the list when a user starts to search. But, well, if you just do that, nothing will happen. Your user will start searching your app and your app will launch and it won't search. So, no good. So, we need to create code that will be executed when Windows says, hello, search me. And I'm first going to show you which code is executed when search is launched when your app is active on the screen, because it's actually two different things. So my app is active on the screen here. Start searching. Probably should put a breakpoint there. Let's see. Here we go. This is my app.xaml startup object. The onWindow created method that automatically gets run, so I've overridden that one. In that, I state, well, hello, get me this application's search pane, one for each app, and handle the query submitted event by executing the onQuerySubmitted method. That's this one. This I don't have to do anymore. What I say then is, well, when the query is submitted, navigate to the search results page, and in my case, send a refresh search message. This is actually the thing that will trigger my search to the backend service. So after this, it's regular .NET code, as you're probably used to. This is the special part here. You get, on this event, when a query is submitted while your app is active. And what you get are arguments which contain the query that has been inputted by your user. I might as well show you what happens on the refresh. That's this. So when a refresh message is received, simply open a call to my catalog service client, download all the categories. By the way, not very good code. You shouldn't typically download everything from your service back. But just to show off the search, it should be enough. And then I just filter these on the inputted query text by title. Okay, so let's see if what I'm saying is correct. Try gold. There we go, we're in the onCreadySubmitted method. And you'll see that I'll now navigate to the search results page and that everything should be refreshed. And there we go, everything connected to gold. Now, there's a difference between when your app is scoped to the main screen and when it isn't. Because when your app isn't scoped to the main screen, you don't go to the onCreadySubmitted method. You actually go to the onSearchActivated method, which is one you can override in your app.xaml. And as you might notice, there's quite a bit more content here. I'm creating frames, and I am checking execution state, and well, there's a lot of more stuff going on here. And of course, I do end with refresh my search. So why is that? Why is there a difference? I'm not going to go into this too deep because it's actually process lifecycle management. But what happens is when your app is already running, it's active. The necessary code table data has been loaded. The necessary frames have been initiated. Your app has been started and is running. When your application isn't active, well, your application actually has to be started up. So typically when your application starts up, you might want to do some more stuff than when your application is already running. You might want to load some code tables. You might want to automatically log in using the credentials your user saved, stuff like that. That's why there's two different ways of going through this. Okay, now there's a bit more you can do with search. I don't have time to explain everything, but a lot of it is in the demo code or in the slides. So you can actually get autocomplete lists by handling the necessary events. You can actually get recommendations here, quick links. You can allow filtering, etc., etc. So there's quite a lot to search you can do from your app to talk to the Windows search component itself. But these were the basics. So with this, you should be able to get started. Next one, the share contract. So people often need data from one app in another. This is one of the things I like most about new Windows operating system. Imagine I'm reading about my banking products in this app. And I state, well, I know someone who always spends too much money. So maybe I should tell him about this product, which automatically limits the amount of money he or she can spend. What you would typically do is either you, as the developer of the banking app, would write code to allow your user to send an email or to share it on, well, Twitter is probably not a good place, to share it somewhere. So you'll have to write code yourself. Another thing that could happen is, well, I'll just copy-paste it and write an email. Well, the thing is, with share contracts, you don't have to do that anymore. You can assume that your user will probably have an app for sending email, and that your user will probably have an app for looking at Facebook or Twitter if he or she uses it. Those applications can tell Windows, much like I've told Windows my app is searchable. You as an application developer can tell Windows, hello, my app can share data of this specific type. You can say, hello, I can share data that's a picture, or hello, I can share data that's a hyperlink, or anything like that. That's being a shared target. That is more or less the same as I've shown you with the search contract. Now, what I'm going to show you here is how you can be a share source. So how you can say, hello, I want to share data. I want to share this banking product picture or information. Windows, handle it for me. That's what I'm going to show you now. Because like that, I can just say share, and then another app will do the work for me. So might want to show you this slide first. Kind of explains everything. So I'm a share source. What I will do, and what I'll show you, is I have to register with the data transfer manager, built-in object, which handles all the sharing between apps. And then the share broker comes up. So the user selects on the charms on your right, selects the share property, to share charm. That's too much too many S's in one sentence. What happens then is my source application, my Woodgrove banking app, receives an event. Hello, Windows told me, hello user, the user told me he wants to share this page. So I will receive an event, and I will have to fill a data package. The data package is the thing that will actually be shared. Call's complete, and I'm already done. So this is all I will have to do. And now Windows takes over. So the share broker will automatically show me a list of apps which can share the kind of data I want to share, for example, a picture. The user selects that one, and once the user selects an app, it's up to that app to handle everything. So much like the shared target in this case will, much like I've shown you with the searching, will have to implement the necessary event handlers to ensure he can share the data. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm the sort app, don't have to do anything anymore. And like that, I've actually added functionality to my application without having to write almost any code for it. So I'll show you. I have a detail page here, which can be shared. And I can share that with these apps. Apparently, these applications have implemented a share contract that they are targets for a picture, if I'm correct. So if you use one of those apps, if that's internet, in this case, you can use this picture. You can use an app to share this picture on Facebook, or you can use any of the other apps. There's no internet. Gonna be a bit of a problem without internet. Okay, there we go. How is that done? Let's see. You, by the way, do not get notified of this. You can handle notifications in the target app. So on the details page, as I've shown you, you have to register with the data transfer manager. Built-in class. So what I do is, on the moment I navigate to the details page, I state, well, I want the data manager for the current view, and when data is requested, I want to execute this method, share data requested method. I remove the handler when I navigate away, just to ensure there's no memory leaking or stuff like that. And then, as was shown in the overview, I have to create a data package. How do I do that? Well, the data requested event arcs have to be filled. That's more or less it. So if you can see, I'm just going to stop this. Arguments. Here we go. Dot request. Dot data. And as you can see, I can add quite a lot of data to a data request package. So I can use HTML, I can use custom data if I want, I can use RTF, I can use storage items like images, just text URI. You just set that on the request.data properties. And again, that's all the code there is you have to write. So this event will get fired, you fill the data package, and Share Broker will take over for you. Right. I have one more, so I think more or less my time frame. That's live tiles. Live tiles make your application more vivid. So that's the thing you see on your start screen moving all about. And as I've said in the beginning of this session, I have included a notification extensions project from the Windows 8 SDK. This one is used to easily create live tiles. And as it's probably going to sound a bit, well, there we go again, but there's really not much to it to get this up and running. Probably told you about this in the previous session, but lifestyles can be a variety of formats. They can contain pictures, they can contain badges, glyphs, they can automatically update with preview. You can have up to 5 notifications in a row on your lifestyle, so it automatically goes from the one to the other. And all of that is easily achieved by using these notification extensions. That project. If you really want to know what's going on, all that stuff is XML. So you can really create all your notification, all your lifestyles by creating the XML yourself. If you want to do that, you can do that. But notification extensions actually do that for you, make it a bit easier to work with. If I'm not mistaken, where was, here we go. That's my Woodgrove application. And as you can see, it already has a live tile. This is no longer the regular tile from my Woodgrove app. And that is because I was running my application right about now. And I have included a bit of code to create one of those tiles. Again, there's a lot more than I can show you now. You can even create tiles from background tasks. You can even do that with mobile services. So push new data to your tile. But I'm going to show you the basics. So in the product, probably the basics. Yes. I have a method here, create random tile, which gets executed when my categories are loaded, just to be able to show you. So what happens? Oh. I take the first product I got back from my service, and I use the tile content factory to create a tile white image and text 01. That's one of the built-in items. Let me show you tile content factory. These are all types of tiles you can create. So you can have square tiles. These are the smaller tiles. You can have a larger tile. You can have one that provide peak animations, etc., etc. All this is from the notification extensions, by the way. So you can create all of those. I've created one of the more simpler ones, a white one with text and an image. I set the text as the title of my product. I set the image of this tile, localhost in this case, running it locally, and product main image URI. Set an alternate naming. Also, if you create a white tile, you are obligated to create a square tile, because your user can make the tile smaller. If you have a square tile, you're not obligated to create a large one, but you are the other way around. So, just for your information. So for the smaller tile, I just show the image. And then using this tile update manager from the notification extensions, it creates one tile updater for the application, and I say, well, update this with the tile content I've just created. So create notification will actually create the XML behind screens and send it to the tile updater. And like this, you've got your live tile. Now, a good place for building live tiles, by the way, if it doesn't take too long to build them, because there are limits, is in suspending, while you suspend the app. So you probably have a lot of data there. If you suspend the app, you want the live tile to be probably the most up-to-date info that's fetched. So that's a pretty good place to do that. Okay, is there anything else? Lots and lots and lots of stuff. There's background tasks you can use to run code in the backend even when your app is not running. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of other built-in controls. There's badges, there's toasts, there's lock screen access. There's really a huge amount of stuff. The best thing you can do, MSDN, of course. The other sessions on Tech Days today. But if you're already building apps, these are a few good resources, according to me. The last one are the Windows 8 Store SDK samples. So for more or less anything you'd want to do, you can find a sample. The first one is Model View Model Lite. If you build XAML applications, MVVM is more or less the default design pattern. And MVVM Lite is an open source framework that enables you to quickly implement that. And the second one, that's from Tim Heur, I think is a Microsoft employee. Callisto is a collection of extra Windows 8 controls and helpers. So that's a really, really good one. Also open source, by the way. Okay, so I think I more or less stating my time frame. Does anyone have any questions? No? Well, if you happen to have one later on, I'm still here for the next session. So see you in 20 minutes, 25 minutes.